So, all right. I want to start with sharing a little bit of why I'm here. Why in the world did I drive an hour to Mitchell to spend a morning with you guys? And it's a little bit from my own personal story. So before we launch into it. So I know what you're thinking when you look at that picture. You're thinking, this kid is destined places. Someday he will be in a golf club speaking before the masses. Look at that three-piece suit. The bowl cut his grandmother just gave him. Actually, I think what most of you are focusing on is the bike. Right. What's your name? What's that? Steven. You had a banana seat bike? Yeah. How many of you had the banana? Oh, yeah. Hang on, friends. Hang on, though. This is where... But did yours have a headlight, a rear view mirror? I had... What are those signals? Did you have that? No, right? That's on the street. Exactly. Exactly. So it looks like this 10-year-old has got it all, right? Here's the problem with this picture. It's a complete lie. I was not a happy kid. Why? Because as an immigrant kid, my first day on the playground, I was told I was a piece of crap and I didn't belong because where I was from and the language I spoke. Oh, listen, who's the sweet part? Oh. I'm not sharing you to get the ahs, but that's very empathic of you. I'm sharing it with you because the people you and I serve each and every day get told the same message. That's why I'm here today. That's why I believe what you do matters. This is why I'm passionate about the work you and I do collectively and why I'm grateful to be here. All right, so that's a little bit about who I am. We're not moving anymore here for some reason. We're stuck.
Okay, who's good with IT?
There we go.
Oh, got it.
All right. Quickly, let's go through the 3 E's of why does someone walk through your doors? This is where I'm at today. This is 15 years of sitting down with the people we serve, meeting with people like you who are far smarter than me that are doing direct service, a lot of research, a lot of reading. This is where I'm today with my understanding of why someone comes through your doors and they come through our doors. So let's go economics first. Now, when I'm talking about economics, I'm talking about growing up in poverty. I don't know if any of you have heard of this book called The Life Project, but in 1945, I believe, if you were born in a certain part of Britain, you were automatically put into a lifelong study. And you've been tracked. You're still being tracked till this day. Then the Brits in the 50s, 70s, and I believe around 2000 started 3 more longitudinal studies. So all in all, we have about data on 70,000 people from the time they were born. Could you imagine that data from those like born in 1940? We know exactly the way they've been parented, what's happened in their life, and early days, like what kind of home did they grow up, how were they parented, what happened in there, and what were the long-term outcomes. Now, I know with a group like you, you're not going to be stunned by the outcomes of kids who grew up in low income, what their long-term trajectory is, right? Health-wise, all that. I know you don't, you guys probably have a sense. Now, I want to be very clear. I'm not here to say anyone who grew up in poverty, that's it. Their life is going to be in shambles. There's no hope, right? Some of you in this room probably didn't grow up with a lot. And look at you, you're raging successes wearing these amazing sweaters today, right? So it's proof. I'm just saying it's a risk factor, and unless you have buffers in your life. I'll get to the buffers in a bit. All right, let's move to environment. You and I know that no child chooses to be sexually abused. No child chooses to have a chaotic home environment. No child chooses to be mistreated by a parent. But you and I both know the reality is that it happens to a lot of kids, and there's long-term outcomes of that. You and I probably wouldn't be employed if it wasn't for those kind of environments. How many of you here are familiar with the ACE study, Adverse Childhood Experience? I love you guys. Do you know how many times I go out in the community and I'm like, has anyone heard of the ACE? And it's just crickets. I think this is one of the most important studies done, right? Done since the late 80s. It's been replicated hundreds of times. And I don't know if any of you have followed like the most recent stuff about the ACE study, but it's now proving that your ACE score is directly correlated with cancer, diabetes, all these other health issues. So it's an incredibly important study. Problem is the medical community doesn't know what to do with it because there's not a machine or a pill to help with ACE, right? The solution to ACE is you guys. And so, anyways, for those of you not familiar with ACE, it's a very simple 10 questions. Before the age of 18, did you experience any of the following? I'll read you the first one. Did a parent or other adult in the household often or very often swear at you, insult you, put you down, or humiliate you? Yes or no? And basically your score from 1 to 10, some of us in this room probably will score 0 to 1, some maybe 1 or 2, some of us may score 7 or 8. If you score about 7 on the ACE, you probably have about a 1,300% increased chance of becoming an intravenous drug user. Okay, so pretty accurate about the ACE scores. So I had someone come in to visit us at House of Friendship, and he said, I look down upon the people you serve. He said, I got 7 out of 10 on the ACE score, and look at me today. I got an amazing job at the university. I'm in a stable relationship. And he said, but nobody explained the concept of buffers to me before. So what am I talking about when I'm talking about buffers? Is the child that's growing up, yes, maybe you had a chaotic home environment. Things are falling apart with mom and dad. But you had that teacher that noticed you. You had that teacher that saw you. Maybe it was a Boy Scout or Girl Scout or something. Maybe it was in your faith community. Whatever. There was something there that someone saw you and supported you. Maybe it was a counseling somewhere. Maybe it was that neighbor that realized, hey, this family's not doing well, so they don't have enough resources, so I'm going to drop a casserole off of theirs. Whatever it is. You all in this room are buffers for the people you're serving, and that it's just the reality is, and this is what I had to explain to my father, who said, I grew up at the beginning of World War II. I had my father taken away. I was raised in a single mom, poverty, incredible trauma. And look at me, I immigrated to Canada. I worked really hard. You kids are doing fine. Like, what's wrong with those people you serve? They're just lazy. Dad, the difference between you and the people that we serve is that from the time they were born, there was no buffer. There was no one that came between them and that concrete wall. There was no piece of foam to cushion the blow. There was never that teacher that noticed. There was never that community leader there. Didn't get the services they need. And so that's the difference. I said, Dad, you, in the height of World War II, when there was no food and there was a half a piece of bread, your mother gave it to you. She loved you. She did everything for you. She sacrificed for you. You had a buffer. That's the difference. And so the young gentleman that came from the university said, John, no one explained this to me. I went home that night, and yeah, I got 7 out of 10 on my ACE score, but I looked back at my life, and I could identify one after another who helped me out in all the different buffers in my life. I thought I just did it all by myself. No, you did it because you had buffers in your life. Okay, is any of this landing so far? Are you with me? Okay, last one. So then, when I talk about this, then some people are feeling smug. I know this would never happen with this group. I'm just saying in the community when I've talked about the 3 E's, people are like, well, I didn't grow up in poverty, and I grew up in the most amazing home. I had loving parents, I had all the, good schooling, everything. My life's going to be perfect, right? Experience. You and I know, actually you guys know this better than anyone else. Bad things happen to good people each and every day. Your life could go along swimmingly, and all of a sudden, the loss of a child, tragic accident, mental health onset, right? These are probably the folks that you see on day to day, right? How many times have you heard someone that you're serving say, I had it all before. I had the family, I had the kids, everything was going along, and then X happened, and I was just never able to rebound. And sometimes people have buffers in their life, have folks like you, and they can kind of make it, and then other times, it's just the tragedy is unthinkable. There are just some things that happen in life that are so devastating and unthinkable. And again, I know you get it. So those are, and you know, a great example for me these days, years ago, Shane here died in our shelter of an overdose. And I remember meeting with his family, and because they didn't live in town, so they weren't familiar where their brother had been living the last few years, so they came to visit. And I'm watching this family, and I'm like, Mom was an emergency department nurse, Dad was a pilot, like the siblings all love each other. And so I just finally said to them, as we're standing in the shelter room that their brother had been living in for over a year, I said, how did we get here? How do we get from this incredibly loving family to your son dying of an overdose in our bathroom? And they said to me, John, you're absolutely right. We have an incredible family. We love each other. We care about each other. And I know you guys have heard this story 1,000 times. Shane graduated from high school, got a construction job, had a minor injury, went to the doctor, got the prescription. 10 years later, we could no longer support him. It just escalated. That's when you guys started looking after him, and that is how we got here. And, you know, again, for your group, I don't have to tell you the opioid crisis, the housing crisis, all those things are fueling a lot of challenges. Anybody read this book, Ragged Company? What's your name?
My name is
Kelly? Do you still remember it a little bit? Yeah, it kind of stays with you, right? Written by Richard Wagamese, one of our great Indigenous authors in Canada, sadly passed away. I had the privilege of meeting Richard, but do you remember the basic premise, right? 4 characters on the street. What happens to them?
They find a lottery ticket.
A lottery ticket for $13 million. The book goes from there. And what's fascinating, I don't know if you remember Kelly, right? Is 3 of them fall into the economics environment experience. Like they got on the street because they grew up in awful environments, grew up in poverty, like they were there for all the traditional reasons someone ends up. But I don't know if you remember the 4th character. He was fine. Like he had a good life, married, everything. And then let's not spoil it for them because they obviously haven't read this book. Maybe they'll read it over the Christmas break. But the 4th one, right? Something unthinkable happened. He never recovered, and that's how he ended up there. And so it's a beautiful book that really, I think, shows sort of this whole piece of the 3 E's and buffers in a really interesting way. Okay, we're already done 1, guys. You're nailing it. Are we good? Are we ready for number 2? This shows up. You got Uber, you got Airbnb. And it changes the trajectory of your life forever because your cab company is never going to be the same ever again, but you don't know what the future looks like. Your hotel is no longer going to be the same, so you can't go back to the way you used to do it, but you also don't know what the future looks like. I think that's the kind of time you and I are living in, and that's the kind of time you and I are serving in. All of us have had our own Uber moment. If I were to ask you, particularly to your role at CMHA, what do you think your Uber is? Recently, I met with all the CEOs of YMCAs across Ontario, and I shared this with them, and I said, what's your Uber? I didn't even get the chance to get the question out of my mouth, and they right away said Peloton, the pandemic, and a lot of our YMCAs are in downtowns, and homelessness is creating a huge challenge. It's creating a barrier for us. People are not coming back to the gym, and so our whole model has to be completely revamped of what does a Y in today's context look like, right? Met with Habitat for Humanity. Back in the day, when a house could be built for $150,000, building a few houses for families in need worked. How does the Habitat model work in a day and time when the average house price is $700,000? Like, right? And in business and, you know, in academia, right, with AI, like everyone's having a bit of an Uber moment regardless of what sector I talk to, but I'm more interested in what do you feel in the work that you do at CMHA, what do you think your Uber is? The government. There. Funding.
Greedy landlords.
That's so, how about I reword that in the whole housing, like housing not being affordable?
Yeah.
Short-term counseling.
Say more about that.
I feel like a lot of folks that we serve could benefit from longer-term counseling, and I obviously see the benefit of short-term counseling because it gets people in and out, but I feel
Right.
like when people are limited to 6 sessions, it's difficult for them to make progress that maybe they're looking to make.
Okay. Any other?
The combination of fewer community resources, like which then creates higher acuity clients, but then we're trying to support people who are higher acuity with less.
Right. So, have your services grown astronomically? They have. But have they kept pace with the need out in the community?
Not even close.
Right. And after the pandemic, have things kind of gone back and calmed down?
No.
Right.
We want to just cut us each in half, so there's 2 of us.
Right.
Because we really need double the amount of staff to serve the needs of our community right now.
Right.
We have really high needs in our community.
And how are we?
We need our community serving our community.
Say that again.
We need our community serving our community.
We need our community serving.
People to start.
Right.
We need people that actually support like homelessness funding. Like we have a community of like Stratford that has a very affluent community that wants to build $70 million theaters and won't even save $5 million from that to have shelters. You know, like when you get a tour of this theater, like they imported all the marble from Italy. Like don't get me wrong, I'm pro arts, okay? But could we not have done just a little less? Like
Right.
so it's hard when I look at that theater and then I see someone pushing a cart
Yeah.
down the parking lot that's empty.
Yeah. Can I ask also just, I didn't see I think you guys went through engagement survey results just before I didn't see your data, but like, are all of you doing great post-pandemic? Right, and so it's this challenge, right? How many of you were serving with CMHA during the pandemic? Okay. So we went through that, and we need time to breathe, right? To catch our breath. But has the need in the community stopped, slowed down? Right? You guys all reading the information about pick counts and homelessness or whatever, right? And so that's the time we find ourselves in. We cannot go back to where we came from. We have no idea what the future looks like. And so we're in this in-between space. And that's what I want to talk about is how do you live in this in-between space? And first I just want to name it. And not just, well, let's just work a little harder. Let's just try a little harder. Let's just keep going. So for me, I would say at House of Friendship, if you were to ask me, what's our Uber? It's a synthetic drug era. I've been there 15 years. The first 15 years, or the first 7 years, I don't even know if I knew what the word overdose meant. Deaths, I don't know, maybe we had 1 death a year in the shelter. Someone had a heart attack or something. In the last 7-8 years, I would say since 2015, that's just a regular part of our life. Last week, we had 2 deaths in our shelter. And then this is just sort of what happens, right? And I mean, we're seeing, I don't remember encampments a number of years ago. They're pretty much everywhere in North America now, in every major urban center and non-major urban center. Do you have encampments in your communities out here?
Yes.
Right? This is a new world. And what we're grappling with, what we're dealing with. And so you and I have a choice. There's a tried and tested and true method of responding. It's an option. I'm just saying, lots of people have used it before.
First I thought he was playing. I'm like,
Some are still using it. It's always available to all of us in this room. It's there. Or the other part is saying, we don't know what the future holds, but we got to try stuff. We have to try new things. It might be uncomfortable. We may risk. We may fail. And we're not really great at taking risks in our field, right? Because we don't want to fail, or we're afraid it'll negatively impact the people we serve. But I'm telling you, the time we're living in now, I'm not sure what we got to lose. Because doing what we've always done is not going to help us. So I just want to share a quick story with you from House of Friendship. We started, so in the 2015-16, we started seeing things in shelter that we had never seen before. And I started to realize that, and our team started to realize that providing shelter by providing a bed and a meal is no longer going to help people experiencing homelessness, not with synthetic drugs, not with the toxic drug supply on our streets. And so, and I started thinking about it. Could you imagine if you and I took our loved one to a cancer center and the doctor said, yeah, we're going to give your mom a bed, we're going to give a meal, but we're not going to give her any chemo or radiation? We'd freak out, right? That's how we've been addressing homelessness for decades. Let's put people in a church basement on a mat, let's give them a meal, and somehow miraculously that will cure their trauma, their mental health, their addiction. Let's just hope for the best. And in some ways, to be honest, we got away with it for years. It worked. But we didn't have the challenges that you and I are grappling with in today's context. And so we had to do something different. And in 2014, took a team of 7. We went out to Ottawa and we saw this model called Hospital Without Walls, where they actually brought the medical care right into the shelter. And I remember watching it in action. I was completely blown away, and I thought, this is what we've got to do. We have to integrate healthcare into our shelters 24/7 because until we start addressing the underlying mental health, the trauma, the addictions of people experiencing homelessness, we're never going to move this thing forward. And so so here's what we did is in 2019, in front of 600 people at our annual fundraising dinner, we said, we think we could do better. We have no clue how to do this, but we'd like your help. And so we showed them this 2-minute animation. It will work eventually, I promise. We just shared it with the community. We said, we believe we need to do something different. We don't know what this looks like. We have no idea how to do it. But we got to do something different as a community. And little did I know that 5 months later the global pandemic would break out. So here we are, March 2020. I'm sorry, I don't mean to re-traumatize you to think back to that day. But here's where I was that day is we had 51 guys jammed into 11 bedrooms in a small shelter in downtown Kitchener, and they were getting sick. And public health said, well, you gotta isolate them. Where am I gonna isolate them? I got no room. I'm panicking, right? And there's all these messages coming down, right, about the pandemic. And this is, you and I didn't know about masks. We didn't know about vaccinations, right? Remember that state we were in? And so I'm afraid for my team. I'm afraid for the people we're serving. I'm freaking out. And I'll get a phone call, I'll never forget for the rest of my life. It was from the Radisson Hotel saying, how can we help? And I said, I need to move my whole shelter in your hotel. They said the rooms will be ready for you tomorrow morning. So, we literally took our whole shelter, moved it into the Radisson Hotel, and we thought, hey, we had this idea of shelter care, here's our moment. And so we took, literally we got the guys on a bus, moved them over. In the basement, we took a little conference room and we created an impromptu health clinic in the basement of this hotel. We had some incredible nurses that joined us, and lo and behold, 6 months later, when we were starting to look at our data, we had way less violence towards staff. Our overdoses dropped in half. Use of ambulance and police dropped by 60 to 70%. And we shouldn't have been surprised. It's a little bit like giving chemo and radiation therapy to people struggling with cancer. And so I'm gonna spare you the gory details of what happened. I'm gonna cut the story short, and it's gonna sound like, oh, look how wonderfully and easily this turned out. It didn't go that way, but I wanna update you to where we are today. We moved from one hotel, we had to move to a different one. There was a tragic fire that burned the whole hotel down. So at 7 p.m. at night with 130 people with nowhere to go, imagine yourself standing there in that parking lot trying to figure out where to go. And by then, nobody was going to allow us in. Thankfully, I don't know how this happened. There was a hotel in Guelph. So we drove down the street, we took all of our guys, and I thought we'll stay there for a month or two. Surely we'll be able to find a shelter back in our own community or another hotel or something. And everywhere I went, I got the door slammed in my face. No, that's not going to work. No, we have bylaws. No, you can't be here. It was the lowest point in my career, the lowest time as a team. It was awful. And so we ended up staying in Guelph for 9 months, and we couldn't find a place, and we had to move out of Guelph. And so the thing that, like, we've been doing this for 80 years. And we were homeless ourselves now. So we had to lay off 70 staff, didn't have anywhere to go, found a place for all of the fellows staying at the hotel. So it got bad, folks, just to say the least. Somewhere in the middle of that, we found out this hotel was willing to sell. This is the Comfort Inn in Waterloo. I don't know if any of you can picture that or if you've been in that part of town. Through all sorts of miracles and different circumstances, we had the opportunity to purchase it. The Ontario government gave us some money, CMHC came through. So we took the hotel, we took a full year to renovate it. Imagine the political pressure during the pandemic. Hey, it's a hotel, just get the people in there. And my staff said, John, we get one chance to do this right. Whatever we do, as soon as they move in, we got to live with this for the rest of our lives. Let's learn from our mistakes. Let's just take the time. Let's design this thing properly. And so we did. We did a lot of different things to provide a dignified environment for the people we serve, but just as importantly, I wanted my staff to feel safe. Because trying to serve in a synthetic drug era is not for the faint of heart. And so we have to consider our staff just as much as we consider the people we serve. So we provided dignified spaces. We have 2 medical clinics in there. So we have medical staff on site that come every week. So all the physical needs are met. The thing that I don't have a picture here that I should have put in, knowing who I was speaking to today with all of the addiction practitioners here, we have a 24/7 safe use space within the hotel.
Nice, nice.
And so it's the only place you're allowed to use, has both indoor and outdoor, because as you know, the trend is more to inhalation versus injection. And so we created this space where our addiction staff are sitting inside, and so anyone who's using inside, they can keep an eye, but they can also look through the window in the outdoor space. And shockingly, people are getting better. We're housing a record number of people, and we're not using emergency services as much. And this character, I just ran into him yesterday actually. Had been living in shelter for years and years, and he's now living in housing, getting the supports. He's living in our supportive housing that we're providing. Anyways, I just wanted to share that story with you. And I'm not here to say, oh, look at us, look what we did. Genuinely, I'm not. I'm just saying this is an example of we've just got to try stuff. And I'm not saying shelter care is the answer and the end all, but it's something. It's different than what we were providing yesterday. In today's context, I think we've just got to try stuff. From tiny homes to shelter, like we need to try things, and I know it's scary, but I don't know any other way forward. So that's the purple taxis and the yellow hotels. We're already done 2 out of 3 things. Guys, you guys are nailing it. Are we still good? The last part. I want to talk about you. Are any of you in this picture?
Yeah.
Oh, a few of you are.
Yeah, well,
Right on. It's amazing what you can pull off someone's website these days. So where does that leave each of you? Where does that leave you as a CMHA team? Living in this time that I'm talking about, you can't go back to the past. You don't know what the future holds. You have to hold 2 things that seem to be in contrast to each other. You simultaneously have to give yourself grace and understand that you're serving in a time period unlike any other. Give yourself grace. We're not great at that, are we, in this field? We'll give all the grace in the world to the people we serve, but boy, are we ever hard on ourselves, right? There's a dangerous side to caring deeply, to having the compassion and the empathy that each of you have. So give yourself grace, support each other, and simultaneously challenge yourself to just try, take risks, to fail. And that's hard to do, but I don't know how else to exist in this time period. Status quo ain't an option for you and I. Not with the needs that you and I are seeing out there, what the community needs. And let's be honest. I don't know what I'm doing, and neither do you. None of us know what we're doing right now. We haven't seen this stuff before. And there's a lot of other things happening externally that also make it more complex, right? And there are no simple solutions. If there was a silver bullet, it would have happened, right? And it's not just your community struggling, it's not our community, right? We're seeing this kind of across, I would say, North America. And I think the communities that are going to prosper and do better are the ones that come together. I think you said it, like we got to come together as a community. We got to, and it's not about arts versus social services. It's not about, social services versus business. Like we need a thriving business economy. We need a thriving arts sector, but we also need a thriving social service sector. Our communities are only as strong as our weakest link. And if our most vulnerable don't feel like they belong or aren't part of a community, we're not going to have a strong community. And sometimes we underestimate how important we are to a community infrastructure. And sometimes, because people take us for granted or whatever, but imagine if tomorrow all of you didn't show up for work.
It's not an option.
Yeah. But just imagine your community without all of you doing what you do on a daily basis. It's pretty incredible what each of you do and the support you give. And I know you would want to do more, and I know there's not enough of it, but imagine even if take away what you're already doing today. So I want to leave you with just a couple of thoughts to think about. First of all, the organizations and communities that I think are going to move forward in a good way in the future are those that focus on what they can control and spend their efforts there instead of the things that are out of their control. In our sector, we can complain about funding, we can complain about government, we can complain about lots of things. At the end of the day, we don't really have a lot of control over things. The housing crisis is a larger macroeconomic factor. A lot of people want to live in Ontario. A lot of people want to live in the kind of community you and I have, and that drives up housing price. Like, there's just things at play that you and I are out of our control, and so we have a choice. We can complain about it, we can get angry about it, but is that going to make a difference for you and the people we serve? And so I think there are, I call them the 3 C's. There are 3 things you control: culture, change, and communication. Nobody dictates the kind of culture you have here at CMHA. That's a choice all of you in this room make. No government is telling you how to behave, how to treat each other, right? Like, that's all in your control. How you handle change management. My understanding is that you've gone through a lot of change here as a team, as an organization. And it's been hard. Change is hard. And so I don't know all the details of all that. But again, nobody tells you how to do that. You figure that out as a team. That's in your control. The last thing is how you communicate with each other. You could be mean to each other. You cannot, validate each other. You cannot help each other. That's a choice. And that happens in our organizations. And sometimes those of us who we should know better because of our training and our background, we do everything for the people we serve, and we forget to treat the person we serve with in the same manner. Those are things in our control: change, culture, communication. That's a choice we all make. And that's a commitment we try to make at House of Friendship, is we can't control. And are we frustrated by different systems? Are we frustrated by government funding? Are we frustrated about the 100%? And we try to do our advocacy piece, and we rely on people's roles who, have that role. But at the end of the day, we can have fun. We could dress up silly. We could cheer each other up, right? There are things that we do, and I would love to think that's already happening, and I want to encourage you to do more. Sorry, I don't know what's going on there. I just saw one of your colleagues blow a kiss to somebody else, so I don't know if they're already they're already just taking in what I'm saying, and they're just like role modeling it. So thank you for that. Like that, talk about instant gratification. I have no clue why I have a cat in my presentation, but I figured there'd be some of you that love cats would appreciate seeing a cat. Oh, well, there you go. I did that for Catherine. There we go. Genuinely, I have no clue why I have a cat in there. Last thing, you individually. Forget about CMHA. Now I'm talking to you individually, each of you. What can you do in this time that we're living, right? Give yourself grace, but also try new things, push, challenge, take risks, fail. How do you set yourself up to do that? This is what I'll leave you with 3 S's. Yes, there's a theme, 3 C's, 3 S's. You got them? So, the 3 S's that I want to share with you individually: story, strengths, spirit. Each of you here has a story. And I'm going to say something that's probably going to offend some of you, and your mother should have told you this, but she didn't because she loved you too much. So I'm going to say it to you. You're not normal. It's true, she says. The lady that's blowing kisses just said that. She confirmed. Look at, normal people don't do this. Normal people focus on themselves and just look down on the world, and they don't worry about other problems. It's all about them. You look up, you see the challenges in the world, you're like, I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to care, and I'm going to listen, and I'm going to walk with someone struggling. That's not normal. I'm sorry, talk to your therapist about that if you're not going to tell you that. There's a reason you're here. There's something in your own personal journey, in your story, that has led you to this work. Now, I know some of you are in it for the money, but some of you, the majority are, I know, there's a few of you, come on, be honest, you love that money. But the majority of you are here because of your story. There's something in your story that has made you a little bit more empathic, right? When you're 7 years old, as an immigrant kid, and someone tells you you're a piece of crap because where you're from and the language you speak, it changes your trajectory. And I think there's something in your own story, and I don't know, as colleagues, if you know each other's stories, I would encourage you to share some of your own stories if you haven't already. I think there's so much power in your story. The other reason I ask you to focus on your story is, in your story is your why. And in our lowest moments, in a pandemic, when everything's going wrong and a hotel is just burned down, you have nowhere to go, you better know your why. You guys have talked about that.
I'm going to talk about that.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. I'm stealing your ED's thunder here, so I'll stop. Mind you, I can't compete with that outfit, Catherine. Okay, next. Strengths. I don't know if any of you have heard the tool StrengthsFinder. Does that mean anything? Some of you have used it. We use it at House of Friendship. It tells you your top 5 strengths. So it's just one tool out there. There's other tools out there. My whole thing is, each of you are uniquely wired. Each of you brings different strengths to the tables. I don't know, how aware are you at your superpowers? How aware are you at your unique strengths that you bring to the table? And how aware are your colleagues? Organizations that thrive tap into each other's strengths regularly. Organizations that get caught in a toxic culture focus on what's wrong with each other. Again, it's a choice each of you individually make. And so how are you bringing your strengths to the table? How are you sharing them? How are you tapping into them? Lastly, spirit. I think you guys already know where I'm going with this, but what feeds your spirit? And what are you doing to fill it? What's the thing that you've left behind because you're so busy helping others, you're always looking out for others at home, at work? And I would say, I'm going to speak to the female colleagues here in the room in particular, moms, right? You guys, you're giving at work and then at home and all that. You're particularly, you guys sacrifice more. I'm sorry, I'm picking on you guys, but I'll just leave it at that. Feed your spirit. What's the thing you used to do that fueled you, and now it's like, oh, I don't have time for that. The kids need me, work is busy. How do you come back to that? How do you fuel your spirit? Okay, so just story, strengths, spirit. I'll end with the story of my friend Clarence. Does any of you know Clarence Packaging? Have any of you heard that name, Crowshield Lodge? You have?
I've heard the name, but I don't know.
Okay, you will, after today, you will look him up. You'll hear more about it. Clarence just wrote an incredible book called North Wind Man that shares his story. And, I was grateful when I started 15 years ago at House of Friendship. Clarence came into my life, and he's been a great gift, and he's a visionary. He's a friend. But what's fascinating to me is Clarence like many of our Indigenous brothers and sisters, went through a lot of different trauma, and his parents went through the residential schools. Clarence was part of the Scoop, and got adopted at a young age, grew up in Waterloo Region, and married 2 daughters, and then just with all his background, addictions, lived on our streets for many years, lost contact with his family, and today he's an incredible community leader, visionary, helping others, bringing Indigenous and non-Indigenous people together. And I remember years ago, Clarence and I were speaking together at an event, and I said, Clarence, how does this work? How did we get here? Like, how did you and I get to be colleagues? And you used to have this life, used to be living in Victoria Park, all this kind of stuff. And I've never forgotten his answer to me. He said, John, I'm here because this community never gave up on me. When I was in the soup kitchen and I was a complete ass and I was really hard to deal with, they still allowed me to come back, and they gave me a place, and they knew that when I was ready, I always had a place to go to. There was someone that was going to respond and do something for me when I was ready. What you and I do matters. It changes people's lives. It helps people have a whole different trajectory. It's not easy. It's hard. Lots of devastation is going on. But I hope when you think about kind of your work, I know you have your own version of Clarence and your own journey and story, why it matters. I want to say a huge, huge thank you to each of you for not only dressing up the way you did today, but for the way you show up each and every day, and the work that you do for our communities. It matters. I know we're going through a difficult period, but I think we're going to go and learn and do things a little differently moving forward. I just want to thank you for the time we've had together.